EV Comply, simplifying your charge point installations.
Friday the 17th of June, and what a scorcher we've got here in the UK. Another week, another roundup brought to you directly from EV Comply. It's only right we kickstart with this news. The government this week announced the closing of the plug-in car grant scheme to new orders after successfully kickstarting the UK's electric car revolution and supporting the sales of nearly 500,000 electric cars. The scheme has succeeded in creating a mature market for ultra-low emission vehicles, helping to increase the sales of fully electric cars from less than 1,000 in 2011 to almost 100,000 in the first 5 months of 2022 alone. Battery and hybrid electric vehicles now make up more than half of all new cars sold, and fully electric car sales have risen by 70% in the last year, now representing 1 in 6 new cars joining the UK roads. The government has always been clear the plug-in car grant was temporary and previously confirmed funding until 2022 to 2023. Successive reductions in the size of the grant and the number of models it covers have had little effect on rapidly accelerating sales or on the continuously growing range of models being manufactured. Due to this, the government is now refocusing funding towards the main barriers to the EV transition, including public charging and supporting the purchase of other road vehicles where the switch to electric requires further development. Now let's talk about the petrol cliff. This is what our society drives off when it fails to anticipate a sudden sharp rise in EV uptake at a pace much faster than our governments and industry have been modelling and planning for. Now, it's in these moments where scenario planning goes from being an abstract idea to something grounded by reality. Suddenly, we find ourselves caught out by the chaos we failed to consider in our thinking about risks and projections. Now, the ingredients for this sharp rise in EV uptake is obviously happening now. It seems to be on the horizon. Now, of course, the high petrol and diesel prices that are higher than ever before are not helping, and the levels of climate change and the concern that we've got, and also not to mention the pricing that's now changing with EVs and the general FOMO that surrounds it. People are now having fear of missing out. Are they missing out if they don't own an EV? So people are being asked, as obvious as it is, but to forward think about EVs and to start thinking now so you don't fall off the petrol cliff. Speaking of the petrol cliff, MG Motor UK has halted its sales of affordable EVs as it aims to meet an unprecedented level of demand. They've fallen off the petrol cliff. Amid global semiconductor supply shortages, they've been up against it, but also they weren't expecting the interest to be as high as it's been. A statement issued to AM by the Chinese-owned carmaker UK operation said that it had stopped taking orders of the MG ZS EV SUV launched in November last year as it battles to meet its current order take. In December 2021, Toyota Motor Company surprised the world by revealing 16 upcoming battery electric vehicles from the Toyota and Lexus brands. One of them was the 2023 Toyota BZ4X that's already on sale, whilst the other was the 2023 Lexus RZ 450e that's going to be following later on this year. But one of the most interesting of the EV concept projects to gradually enter production by the end of the decade was undoubtedly the boxy compact cruiser EV. If you're into your off-roading, you are going to love this. The compact cruiser EV is clearly modern. It's featuring LED lighting elements, it has an aggressive front fascia, and it's complete with a chunky skid plate, a ladder mounted on the C-pillar, different wheels on the right hand side, and we also got to see the compact cruiser EV in different colour combinations and with accessories like roof racks, also further lighting and branch deflector wires. It really does look very, very cool, and the colours as well. They've got neons. It looks great. You can check this out actually on our social media page. It's EV Comply across the board. Now, unfortunately, Toyota did not offer any technical specifications on its small off-roader, but we do know it's all electric and an all-wheel drive, and we cannot wait for the boxy compact cruiser EV's release. From a high to a low, Tesla stocks fell on Thursday after the EV news website Electrotech reported the company had raised prices on most of its cars. The automaker overnight updated its online ordering module to reflect higher prices in its Model 3, Model Y, Model S and Model X categories. Shares of Tesla fell by 6.4% to $654. The stock this year through Wednesday's session had declined by 34%, underperforming the S&P 500 slide of 20%. That puts that index in a bear market. Tesla, led by CEO Elon Musk, usually doesn't disclose the reason behind price increases. Electrotech noted the increases in raw material prices and logistic costs are usual suspects. Now, we absolutely love this. Charging technology provider EV Safe Charge has unveiled ZiGGY. Now, ZiGGY is a mobile robot that can charge an EV wherever it's parked through its ability to recharge itself via different energy sources. And its best feature, ZiGGY can alleviate the need to install specific parking stalls for EV charging, as any spot can now become a spot to recharge. ZiGGY was designed with the help of award-winning industrial design studio Boxclever, who contributed the design of the robot's exterior as well as the UX and brand identity. When it hits the market, the ZiGGY robot will be summoned to your EV using a mobile app or the in-vehicle infotainment system. If you summon ahead of time, the robot will arrive at the parking space and hold it for you. How cool is that? Then plug in for charging once you're safely parked. ZiGGY will also be able to return to its home base to recharge from the grid, battery storage or solar energy, or a combination of these sources. The ZiGGY robots can also be implemented for off-site charging if no infrastructure is available. Now, EV Safe Charge plans to lease ZiGGY robots to customers under a charging as a service business model, and we cannot wait. We think it's very cool and very fun as well. In other news this week, Sony and Honda have officially signed a joint venture agreement to establish a company to build electric cars together. The new company will be called the Sony Honda Mobility, and it's going to be giving Sony top billing over the established automakers. The company will also focus on mobility services, building on Sony's January announcement of the formation of the Sony Mobility. Sony Honda Mobility will be formed this year and plans to start sales of both their first EV and provisions of service for mobility in 2025. Company car and van drivers need to be given practical advice on home charging, with driver ignorance around battery care and electrifying tariff rates a huge concern. This is said by the Association of Fleet Professionals. Their members are finding that many new EV drivers are treating their new vehicle in the same way as they might their mobile phone. They come home and they plug in their car or van overnight, no matter what the state of the charge. Now, this isn't good for mobile phones, and it definitely isn't good for EVs either. You shouldn't seek to top up your vehicle continually, but let the battery run down to the point where it needs charging if your journey pattern allows. Now, many experts recommend keeping the charge in a 20 to 80% range. Also, charging in the early evening is usually the highest rate for power companies and is much better done in the early hours when it tends to be a lot cheaper. Accessing the lower rates can make a substantial difference to EV fuel costs and overall be better for your battery health. So something to consider if you're new to an EV or you are just charging it willy-nilly. Proposed laws for EV charging in Singapore, and they're quite interesting. Listen to these. They've said that all new buildings with car parks will have to install EV charging points in at least 1% of their total car park and motorcycle parking lots in the future. This is under the proposed laws to regulate the EV charging. In addition, the developments have to provide sufficient electrical load to support EV charging with 7.4 kilowatt chargers for 15% of the total parking spaces. Besides new buildings, the requirements would also cover developments developments that increase their gross floor area by 50% or more, and those that increase their approved electrical load to 280 amps or more. This proposal is in draft legislation to the government EV charging that the Minister of Transport and Land Transport Authority set out on Wednesday this week for public consultation. Now, it's an interesting one. If it works, no doubt it will be rolled out globally. And finally, Ferrari will soon embark on a frenzy of model launches, having laid out plans overnight for 15 new cars between 2023 and 2026. One of the upcoming 15 models will be an all-electric vehicle, the company's first BEV. Ferrari has previously committed to launch an EV in 2025, and that timing remains in place. Ferrari's CEO Bernardetto Virginia, who's been in the chair for 12 months, didn't go into too much detail about the upcoming EV this week, but claimed it will be unique and will be developed through a Ferrari lens. Another promised highlight will be a high-performance V8 hybrid halo model to follow on from the V12 LA Ferrari. Although Ferrari doesn't confirm it exactly in one of the slides in the presentation, it did allude that this upcoming supercar will be powered by a turbocharged V8 engine with a hybrid system of some sort. The slide also says that it'll have technology from its Formula One and upcoming Le Mans hypercar, which will make its racing debut in the 24 hours of the Le Mans in 2023. We're very excited. We cannot wait for all of these supercar EVs because we know, and you know, that they're going to be fast. So that's all from me. You are now in the EV Know. As ever, I am back with you next Friday, so make sure you like and subscribe. And from everybody here at EV Comply, we hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday and the sunshine and have a top weekend.